Hi, I'm Eric Naso with ericnaso.com, and in for review, we have the Convergent Design Odyssey 7Q Plus. What does Plus mean? Well, Plus means that it's now capable of recording 4K via the HDMI input. That's a big deal. It's very cool. It's great if you own like a Sony a7S or the Panasonic GH4. Those cameras do send out a 4K signal via their HDMI. Now, the one thing about the Sony a7S is it doesn't record internally. So you have to have a recorder if you want to get that wonderful 4K signal out of the camera. Now the GH4, which does record internally 4K, but it is capable of sending out 10-bit 422 4K out of its HDMI. I had a brain freeze. And this recorder will record it. The Odyssey 7Q Plus uses a ProRes 422 HQ, and that's a 10-bit codec. So you'll be able to get that wonderful 10-bit goodness right out of your GH4. So outside of that feature upgrade, the Odyssey 7Q Plus is very similar to the original 7Q. Now, knowing that recorder has been out for a while, so I don't really want to go through every single frame rate, every single setting, everything that it does, because I think that a lot of that has been covered already before, and it would also make this review really, really long. Now, we don't want to sit through, an hour me chatting about settings, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that information in the blog post on ericnaso.com. I'll have links, I'll have the frame rates, I'll have all the resolutions that associate with frame rates, and different cameras, because different cameras, different settings, all that, it's all different. But what I will do is I want to cover how I used it. Now, I used it with a Canon C300 via the SDI in HD, and it looked fabulous. I tried it with the A7S. I shot a commercial with it, and it looked great. All the footage in 4K with full frame sensor. And I've used it with the GH4 a little bit, mostly with the A7S. But I did test it with the YAG as well, and I'll show you how I set that up later in this video. So let's get started. There's a lot to talk about. There's lots of great settings, lots of cool features, and let's just dive right in. The onboard tools on the touchscreen are fantastic. These are really great. All you have to do basically is just tap it once. You don't have to go into a submenu to pick which functions you want to see on the screen. You tap the waveform button, the waveform opens up. You want histogram, tap it, it opens up. Tap it again, it closes. Very simple, one-touch selection. I like that a lot. Also, the tools are customizable. Like with the zebra stripes, if you want to have zebras on, you can hold it a little longer and then it pops up, and then you can make changes to, say, maybe you want your zebras set to 90 or 85. You just change that, close it, and now it's set for the settings that you want. Same with waveform. You can look at Luma, or you can just have it regularly without. Using the menu system is very easy. It's not very sexy. I'm going to tell you right now, if you like, the very glossy or fancy looking GUIs, well, you're not going to get it here. But it's very straightforward, it's very easy, it's intuitive, and you just kind of get in there, find your camera, find your resolution, find your frame rates, and just set it and go. I made kind of a big mistake. I took the screen protector off thinking that it was actually one of those films, like when you buy a new piece of electronics and they cover the front with that little film. Well, I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I got excited. I ended up peeling it off, and then after I peeled it off, I realized, oh my goodness, that's a screen protector. And I tried to put it back on, and it really didn't work very well. So don't take the screen protector off. It's not a film. It's actually there to protect the screen, and it does a wonderful job. Matter of fact, it's crystal clear. But in order to show you this in this review, the inputs, I decided I took a little paper cutter and I trimmed the bottom part off and I put it back on there. So it doesn't really look all that great, but it's there. At least you could tell, it's a Odyssey 7Q. It's by Convergent Design, and it shows you all the SDI inputs are on the side, on the bottom. So other than that, I kind of made a mistake. Not very bright, but hey, everybody makes a mistake, right? But the good thing is, for about 35 bucks, if you buy one of these and you tend to use it a lot, if it gets scratched or anything, you want to protect that Gorilla Glass, then you can always replace the screen protector. It costs about $35. If you're going to use the GH4 with a YAG unit, then you're going to need 4 SDI cables. You just plug them right into the back here, right on the side of the YAG unit, and then you put it right into the Odyssey 7Q Plus. And there you go. Now you're recording 4K video using the YAG. Now, obviously, this unit now has the capability of recording 4K through the HDMI input, which is really a lot easier to do. You're gonna have your embedded audio, and it's just one cable as opposed to 4. But this also gives you options. I mean, there might be other cameras that maybe only use 2 cables to get 4K. So you have this option all the way up to these 4 if you need it. So that also that's a great benefit because the versatility of the Odyssey 7Q and its inputs. Now, of course, this is kind of bulky and I probably wouldn't run this way. If it was me, I would just take the HDMI out of the YAG because it's full size. I much prefer the full size HDMI than I do the micro HDMI that's built into the body of the GH4. It's fragile and they are notorious for failing. And if they fail, you got to send your camera into Panasonic to get it fixed, and that's not cool. So I would probably, in this setup, I wouldn't use the SDI out. I would use the full size HDMI out into the mini HDMI into the Odyssey 7Q Plus, and that's how I would get my 4K recording. If your camera or device doesn't support embedded audio in the SDI stream, then using a cable like this, 3.5mm TRS, and on the other end, it has an XLR for a microphone. The audio input on the Odyssey 7Q Plus is analog and digital. If you're a Sony FS700 user, you can now record ProRes HQ via your HDMI output. Now on the Sony FS700, it's a raw signal that comes out of there. So unfortunately, you will have to buy the option from Convergent Design. It runs a little under $800, but it's pretty great not to have to use that module, which is very expensive, and it makes that FS700, well, pretty long and kind of unruly. So I guess an $800 option to get your ProRes 422HQ 4K signal into this recorder is not too bad. Now also you can record DNG, but those files are going to be very large. So I think the option of going ProRes is probably a little more efficient and better. Strictly as a monitor, it's very nice. And with all the tools on board, it'll serve you very well if you don't even want to use it as a recorder. At first glance, you might think that this is a very large monitor and it's kind of goofy if you put it on top of your camera. Well, I kind of thought so too, but it's not that heavy. It weighs a little over 1 pound. I think it comes into exactly 1¼ pounds. That's not bad. And add a battery, the smaller one would probably be best. I'm using the Sony NPL type. They're very small, they're lightweight, they charge fairly quickly. You can buy 3 different sizes, which is very convenient depending on really how much weight or bulk you want to add to the recorder. There's also other plates available. Check the website, lots of different options. Even third-party ones now are available to make putting a battery on this recorder easy. The 7Q Plus is very power efficient. With a 2600 milliamp battery, I got 1 hour and 20 minutes of continuous recording. That's pretty good. Now these are very small batteries. I can go even longer if I decide to use a little bit bigger. They come in 3 different sizes, so this thing could last all day pretty much with a couple batteries. The Odyssey 7Q Plus has lots of in and out options. 4 SDI inputs, time code input, and now added the 4K capable HDMI. Now, kind of a stickler for me is it's mini. I do not like mini HDMI. I also loathe micro HDMI. And now all these new cameras are going with micro HDMI. It's a very fragile connection. So I'm a little bit bummed that they didn't go with a full-size HDMI that's, I feel, much more robust. When I had my C100, I used the HDMI out all the time. It was pretty solid. It just sticks in there better. It holds, it grips better. So that's kind of a downside to me, but we'll see over time. The mini HDMI hopefully will hold up. A nice touch is that the recorder actually can downsample your 4K resolution that it's recording via one SDI and also the HDMI out. So that really makes it great. If you're going to be recording in 4K, say this is on your camera and you have, let's say, an EVF. Well, I don't know of any 4K EVFs yet, and it's going to require a HD signal. So you can send that out, whether it be SDI or HDMI. Also, how about maybe a director's monitor? you can plug that in and it will also feed that HD signal to a monitor. So it's a great option, good to have, because I think we're still going to be using HD monitors in the field for quite some time. If you're like me, you like shooting in log mode with your cameras. It makes post-production, just opens up the door. You can do anything. It's really great. A lot more information in there in the shadows, and it controls those highlights a lot better. But when you're monitoring it, it does make it a little more difficult to focus and just really get the idea of what this image is going to look like. Well, the 7Q Plus, it has LUTs built in. Now there are some presets in here now, but I'm sure over time they'll add more via firmware updates. If you're using a Sony camera like the A7S or the FS700, even the Canon C100, those cameras will trigger the recorder with the HDMI input. So that's a cool feature. Now the GH4 at this time that I recorded this is not capable of doing that yet. But I understand that Panasonic is releasing a new firmware update that will allow the GH4 to trigger the recorder. Something you need to know about the A7S. If you're shooting in 4K, it will not record anything to the internal media card. In other words, you're not going to get an HD backup while you're using 4K to the recorder. So just know that. Don't be surprised if you try to do both and then you pop out the card thinking, oh, I'm going to have a dual record system here. No, that's not going to happen. Now with the GH4, if you're in 8-bit mode, it will record internally as well. So you'll have a backup. Now if you switch the camera to 10-bit mode, it won't record internally. So these are a couple important things you need to understand about when you're using those two cameras. The Odyssey 7Q Plus only uses proprietary media, so that basically means you can't buy off-the-shelf SSDs to use in this recorder. Now, it's important to also know that they're expensive, but they're expensive probably for a reason. And the reason is they have some safety features built into them. So if you lose power for any reason while you're recording, they'll close the clip. It'll close the card so you don't lose your media, you don't lose your shoot. It protects it. And then when it powers back up, it should fix things. Now, when I noticed that there's a lot more you have to do when you're ejecting the card. You don't just pull the SSD card out. It doesn't work that way. You have to eject it, it closes it, and then you can pop it out. So, and it does have a file structure in there. It's not just a bunch of MOV files on this thing, okay? So it's got definitely got some protection going on in there, which I think is really important. Now, this is a pro grade piece of equipment. So if you're getting paid to go out and shoot, that SSD drive is sort of going to be that weakest link, right? That's where something can go wrong. And I think having that extra protection, getting that server grade SSD quality is going to serve you well. But understand this, that when you buy this unit, it does not come with an SSD drive. But right now it does. For a limited time, they're actually giving you two 256 gigabyte cards. So those retail for, what is it, $395 a piece. That's a pretty good savings. That's almost, what is it? I guess it's almost $800. So that's pretty good. Now, but knowing that, I don't know how long that's going to last. This special. If when it does go out, you're going to be looking at right around $800 for just a couple cards. You can also get, which I think a 512 gigabyte card costs about $795, and then a 1 terabyte card costs $1,400 at this time. So it's definitely a big investment in media. You're going to have to do it because, well, it uses proprietary media. The recorder monitor has a very nice build. It's all metal construction. There's no plastic on here. It's all sealed up. There's no holes, no vents or anything. It has fins on the back, and that's how it wickers the heat off of the unit to keep it cool. It does get warm to the touch if you're using it for a long period of time, but you're not going to burn yourself on it. But it is very nice, very solid. Another thing I really like is when you're using the battery adapter or the battery, actually the AC adapter, it has a clip on it, and you've got to push this little button on the back and it locks it in. That keeps it very secure. You're not going to lose power accidentally by pulling out the power cable. There's not a lot of accessories that come with the unit. It does come with an SSD tray that you can use to transfer your media. But other than that, there really is not a lot of extras in the box. Convergent Design does make a hood for the unit. It's made out of rubber. It works pretty well, but in daylight, you're gonna have problems. If it's bright outside, none of these monitors work well. You have to use a high bright monitor for that. I know I mentioned earlier, I don't like micro and I don't like mini HDMI. I really do wish this unit had a full-size HDMI, but it doesn't. It uses the mini. Convergent Design is now offering with their unit the cable that goes from micro to mini. And I'm glad they did that because I was actually having a hard time finding one for my review. So I had to use this adapter. And as you can see, I just don't like adapters, and it's putting some stress on there probably. And so anyway, I like the idea that they're now offering an HDMI mini to micro. You have 3 different mounting options on the Odyssey 7Q Plus. If you're not using the hood, then you have 1/4-20 on both sides. There's also one on the back. There's not one on the bottom because that's where an HDMI output is. I thought, well, that might be a problem if you're trying to, mount it. It just seemed very difficult. Now, my good buddy Sean, who owns Extender, he makes a really nice mount, and this is what I have on right here. Now, it's on a cold shoe right now, so you can take this off and pop that on your camera, or you can use this adapter as well. This is from, a light stand. This works really well. It's a friction mount, and it really just is perfect. Now, I don't have his adapter on here. I use this for a lot of different purposes, but he makes a special adapter that I think it sits out a little bit more and makes it better. Now, if you want another option, I use one of these here. This is the Manfrotto. This is a very, very nice ball head. This is a very high quality, best ball head I've ever used, okay? But it has this rubber, okay, on here for the mounting. Now, on the back of this unit, it's got those heat fins. So it was really digging into this rubber, and I wasn't getting a really good connection. It just felt a little loose. I guess not loose, it's just wobbly, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't gonna fall or anything. It just was digging in because it's not a flat surface. So to fix that, went down to the hardware store. I picked up some nylon and I picked up some metal washers, these big ones that actually has a 1/4-20, and then I replaced it like that. So that worked very well. All I had to do now when I screw it in, it was holding on tight. I can get it on there really tight, and that rubber protection piece wasn't kind of not giving that contact. It kind of gave it that surface that it needed to tighten up. So those are a couple of very simple mounting options if you're going to use cold shoe, or if you want to use a light stand off camera. Wow, there was just so much to cover in a review. This is a very robust unit, but I tried my best. You've got to keep it short, right? Very important, keep it short. The Odyssey 7Q Plus is a very nice monitor recorder. It does both very well. As a monitor with all the onboard tools, it really helps you as a filmmaker get the shot. As a recorder with the proprietary SSD drives with some built-in protection, I think that you can sleep at night knowing that you're going to get home with the shot. That's important. Now, I know the SSD drives are expensive. They're roughly about 3 times more, but I guess you got to think of it maybe as insurance. At least you know these are proven by Convergent Design to work appropriately and spot on with this device. Now, right now, for a limited time, Convergent Design just released the Odyssey 7Q Plus with 2 free 256 gigabyte SSDs. So that's about an $800 value. So not bad. So now when you buy it, you actually are ready to go. All you need to do is add a battery plate. If you want to use it remotely, you're good to go. So that's about it for me today. Thanks for joining me in this review of the Odyssey 7Q Plus. I'm Eric Naso with ericnaso.com.